All right, we're back with this week's Northwest Sports Podcast, continuing our MLB season preview. And this episode, we're going to be talking about the National League West. The Los Angeles Dodgers won it last year, and they continue to spend the copious amounts of money that they have with their new ownership group. The San Francisco Giants, the Colorado Rockies, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and San Diego Padres are all fighting for presumably second place in that division. They all made interesting moves in the offseason, and they all have interesting players that can really affect the way that this thing goes. There's a lot of injuries in this division that could really swing things, and a lot of injury-prone players, but we're going to start things off talking about the Dodgers. Kyle Smith?
There's not a lot that you can say as far as negative about the Dodgers. They took over one of the worst franchises, or their management currently took over one of the worst franchises in the league, perhaps like 3 years ago, and pretty much overnight with their spending, irrational or not, and really revitalized this franchise, made some great moves. Hanley Ramirez, I think they would have been a whole different team last year if he hadn't been injured down the stretch.
He would have been the MVP if he played 140 games instead of 86.
I mean, he batted, 343 with over 25 home runs?
Yeah, he was incredible.
Amazing.
Bringing up his stats here, I'll get those to you in a sec.
I think that they do have some weaknesses. A.J. Ellis isn't really known as a power hitter, but he is smart. He can get on base, plays good defense.
Manages the pitching staff extremely well.
Yeah, so there's no worries there. Everybody always talks about that outfield: Crawford, Ethier, Puig, and Kemp, obviously. So there's a lot of depth there. But I think if there is any questions, you've got to point to second base, who they may be playing D. Gordon at, or potentially Alex Guerrero. And then, Juan Uribe is just decent. So I think those are going to be their biggest holes, but I mean, if that's the biggest hole you have, I don't think that's really something you want to worry about, especially with a plus side guy like Guerrero coming in halfway through the season. How do you feel about this hitting lineup? How do you project this lineup opening day, top to bottom? If you were Mattingly, how would you put this lineup?
Well, before I give you the 1 through 8, not counting the pitcher, who, if it is Zach Greinke, is actually an incredible hitter for a pitcher. I'm very concerned about the outfield in terms of staying healthy. Crawford, Kemp, big injury issues. Andre Ethier has split problems, and Puig looks heavier in camp and slower. And anytime you see someone gain weight but not keep his speed and flexibility, you always get concerned on the injury front. I don't think Alex Guerrero is ready to be the second baseman. So I think that they're going to give that job to Gordon. Hope he adapts a little bit and can get on base and utilize his very good speed and base running ability.
Gordon.
Yeah, he has fantastic speed.
He can hit over 212. He's great.
Yeah, if his on base was above 330, he could probably steal 40 bases, if not 50. A.J. Ellis, as Kyle said, not really that good of a hitter, but fantastic defensively and managing the strike zone and the pitchers. And Hanley Ramirez, to go back full circle to that, I got his stats up here. He played in just about half a season, 86 games. He hit 345, 400 on base with a 638 slugging, 20 homers, 57 RBIs, 10 steals for an OPS over 1,000. In 86 games, his wins above replacement was 5.4. So if
he would have been better in Trout last year.
Nah, because he wouldn't have been able to sustain it.
Over 40 home runs.
Well, he would have been for sure the best player in the National League. I don't know if he would have been able to sustain it enough to make up. Yeah, but his defense is lacking, so it might have started to hurt him in a larger sample size. But regardless of that, incredible player.
Yeah.
And they still haven't extended him, and he's a free agent after this year. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that before camp, and if they don't, if he stays healthy for the whole year, he could be really good. So when I think about constructing this lineup, it's really weird to me because they don't have a prototypical leadoff guy because Carl Crawford's fallen off a cliff since he left Tampa. So it's really hard, but I think that you go Hanley 3, Adrian Gonzalez 4. I think those two are kind of set in stone. And then depending on how Puig ups his walk rates, I might put him at 2. And then if Crawford's getting on base, put him at 1. You could utilize D. Gordon's speed at 1. Ethier, depending on if the platoon situation favors him, could be hitting 5. I don't know where to put Matt Kemp because I have no idea how much he's going to play. I mean, and then Wani Uribe had a very good year last year, and there's no way in the world that continues this year.
Yeah.
So I would probably have him 7, AJ Ellis 8, pitcher 9. I mean, it's just the injuries and the lack of a leadoff hitter because of Crawford's drop off has kind of made the lineup a little bit tricky. I don't know if you have thoughts on how you'd construct the 1 through 9.
I think I definitely have Crawford lead off. I mean, he had over a 330 OBP last year. Bounce back season by all means. 286, 15 stolen bags in over 112 games. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's the logical candidate because that's what he's always been as a leadoff hitter.
It's a huge if with him these days.
It's a big if, but I mean, he's really only had 2 bad injury seasons. So hopefully that's something he can bounce back from at least for the next year or two. We were talking about Jock Peterson, so that's a potential outfield candidate that they can bring in.
It's nice to have a prospect where you have injury issues.
Yeah.
Who's basically near ready.
Not to mention, as a Mariners fan, you know a lot about Kyle Seager. He's pretty good. There's people saying that Corey Seager's even better. So if Uribe does fall off, that's a prime position that they already have filled.
They drafted Corey Seager as a shortstop. He's Kyle's younger brother. He's actually the 3rd Seager to get drafted, although the middle one isn't nearly as good as Kyle, so he hasn't made a major league roster yet. And he's really big. He's like 6'3", 220, so he's probably going to have to move to 3rd most likely because of the lateral quickness, and that's right where Uribe is playing. And I think he's at least a year and a half out, but he's going to be able to really fill in and be that third baseman of the future they hope moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But if he tears it up and there's a need, he could play this year.
Oh, yeah.
Dodgers don't really care about service time.
No, they don't have those concerns.
They have no problem just throwing up guys like that. So the real hallmark of this team is probably that pitching staff. I mean, it is. We talked about how good the Tigers pitching staff was, how good the Cardinals pitching staff was. Washington. And these Dodgers are right up there. I mean, Kershaw's the best pitcher in baseball. Zach Greinke had a really great year last year. May have overachieved a little bit last year, just based off his career averages. Ryu, to me, kind of reminds me of a guy who nitpicks a little bit too much, but he's kind of got that release that the Rangers like to look for. It comes in at a very sideways angle, so it's kind of hard to project where the ball's going to end up as a batter, as opposed to something that just got sink and goes straight down. I like the Dan Herron pickup. We were talking about Paul Mulholm. Decent pickup. They've got Beckett to rotate into there. So all in all, they have a pretty deep pitching staff. A lot of different options they can use for injury purposes. They have one of the best bullpens that I've probably ever seen. Jansen is incredibly gifted, probably the best closer in the game.
You can definitely make the case that he's right next to Kimbrel.
I think he's better because
I do too.
Because he doesn't have to rely on velocity to get people out. He can get people out right. I mean, not that he doesn't have great velocity, but Kimbrel's reaching 97 a lot, 98, and if that goes away, he might go away. But Jansen's going to be able to do that cutter until he's 45.
Right.
Simo Rivera.
Yeah. I love Jansen. I've been on that Jansen train for 2-3 years. He can absolutely light it up. We don't really need to talk about Kershaw because obviously he's completely incredible. And there's a lot of potential on this rotation that's boom or bust to me. Chad Billingsley is a very good pitcher who gets injured all the time, and when healthy is extremely good. Ryu impressed me last year. I didn't expect him to be that good.
Yeah.
Dan Herron, is he ever going to bounce back to form at this point? I don't think
so.
so.
The very last 7 or 8 starts of the season when he came back from that injury.
Right. But I actually think that Zach Greinke is going to pretty much sustain what he did last year. I disagree with you a little bit. I think he could. Not a 2.63 RA guy, but I could easily see him under 3.
Yeah.
Easily. And
I could too.
I mean, the reason for that for me is his strikeout rate actually dropped. But he cut his walk rate way down to what he used to be when he was Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I feel like he kind of toned down the need for the strikeout and really focused on making sure he kept the ball down and didn't give those free passes.
being on a good team helps that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The Angels weren't really the solution that he was looking for, but he kind of just went across town and was in the playoffs, of course.
Yeah.
And then another minor bullpen arm I would like to bring up for this team, who I big minor fan of. He's just a bullpen piece, but Stephen Five. He's an interesting right-hander. They'll be in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning. Doesn't blow you away, but I feel like he just could have one of those random reliever years where he just doesn't really strike anyone out, just doesn't walk anyone, gets a lot of ground balls, and is successful from a minor, just a numbers perspective.
Yeah,
He could have a surprising ERA.
Yeah, I really like J.P. Howell too. He's a specialist. Pitched in a lot of games last year. Really was very good for them. I would expect him to continue that. He's had some bad years, but at the same time, he's getting older, and it seems like he's really figured it out. So I look forward to him and Wilson having a pretty dynamic duo, and you can pretty much throw Brandon League in all those garbage games where you're up by a couple runs and just kill some innings.
What a bad contract. I know it doesn't matter, but why did they give Brandon League that money?
Nobody in the league understood that. Well, maybe Kevin Towers understood that because he gave Heath Bell like $35 million. So
yeah, it's funny. We took us this on to mention the beard, Brian Wilson, the originator of Fear the Beard. I don't care what all these Houston Rockets fans are doing for Harden. It's fantastic. He has a great beard. Brian Wilson's has always been better.
Yeah, Wilson's is insanely savage, and he's never cut it, which is just great.
And then at the end in the playoffs, the velocity was really starting to return for him. That slider was starting to get a little bit sharper, and they gave him the 1-year, $10 million deal.
Which I think was a steal.
It's a lot of money, but in a 1-year deal, when you don't have to worry about your payroll, it doesn't really matter. So why not lock up a guy that if Jensen were to get hurt, he has obviously stepped in and been a dominant closer before. He's had high strikeout numbers before. He's obviously been proven in the playoffs before with the Giants twice. He can get the job done. So it's nice to have that, 1-2 punch at the top of your rotation in an ace and a near ace, if not 2 aces, and then you have an ace closer and a near ace type closer in Brian Wilson.
Yeah, no, they're pretty well set. They're gonna make a really strong run at the playoffs again. Just a really solid team, top to bottom. They may have a few holes, but I feel like with some of the talent that they have, especially if their outfield performs well, who knows what they're gonna bring back on one of those guys halfway through the season.
Yeah. So you asked me about the rotation. I'm going to ask you, what are they going to do with this rotation? I feel like the top 3 spots are set in Kershaw, Greinke, and Rio, but what are they doing with those 4 or 5 spots? Because there's about 4 or 5 guys that could really, lock those down. And
I think Dan Herron gets the best shot to make the rotation out of all of them, because they did sign him on the 1-year, $10 million deal. He's extremely motivated. I don't have a lot of faith in Beckett just because even though he's a gamer, I have seen a drop off in his stuff a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this go Herron, Mahone, just because he's
what I was thinking.
Perfect innings eater. Obviously Chad Billingsley, and when he's healthy, he could step up into that role pretty well. And I think the Dodgers are going to try and rotate this a lot just to keep those 4 and 5 guys healthy.
And you might see some,
also increase a lot of trade value.
Yeah, you could see a few, a Beckett or, even a Herron with shoulder stiffness to miss one start, not going the DL, and then all of a sudden, here comes a Billingsley injury and replacement start, and at the end of May to see if, he has it still and things like that.
Well, and it'd be a great way to continue to restock their farm if you have like 5 pitchers that other teams want.
And then at the same time, they have a solid top 75 prospect in Zach Lee, who's been in trade rumors a lot. And he could always get the call, too, if the veterans are working out, in June and August.
He's a little farther away, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
if you think Corey Seager can make it, then Zach Lee's closer than him right now, based off level.
Yeah. True, but I don't know. I just feel like Seager's has flashed some pretty special things, and third base is a huge position in need for them, just because I don't see Uribe doing that, which is the predominant reason I provided his name.
Yeah.
But that being said, the Dodgers are the clear runaway favorites. Great team all the way around. Just goes to show you what surprisingly smart management of their money. I mean, I'll be honest, like
The
I thought they
1-year
were.
deals are helpful.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna go into the garbage system when they made that trade with Boston, but that
Yep.
really worked out for them, and they've made a lot of other really smart moves.
The Corey Seager pick was very good. Not trading Zach Lee at his lowest value was smart. Jock Peterson's continued to develop. It helps you if you dump Ethier for a B-level prospect, then you have that Peterson that can come in because you're unlikely to dump Crawford for obvious reasons. So you have that next young guy that can step in and
What
replace
did they
one
dump
of them.
for Ramirez again?
Which Ramirez?
Hanley.
Nathan Evendoli.
Yeah,
Um,
they trade raped, didn't they?
yeah, they really did on that. But Hanley really wanted out.
Yeah,
So they were kind of in a very tough spot with him.
but still, props to
Yeah.
the management.
It's just
to
weird
do
how,
that.
they can get destroyed on the Hanley trade, but then turn around and, make great trades themselves, the Marlins. It's
Yeah.
just strange. So, are you ready for some over-unders?
Yep, let's do it.
Brian Wilson, over-under 50 strikeouts.
I'd say over.
Okay.
I think he'll average nice, hearty K/9, and he'll get the innings.
I'll say with him, it's all about the innings.
Yeah.
So.
He should have over 60.
Yeah, hopefully everything goes right. Adrian Gonzalez, first baseman, very steady. We didn't really mention. He's
That's how steady he is.
yeah, like you just know you're gonna get from him. Over under 20 home runs.
I'm gonna say over.
Okay, and over under 300 batting average.
I'm gonna say over as well.
Okay, I would take the under on the 300 average and the over on the home runs. But I do feel like there could be a steep drop off coming for Gonzalez. He already
Possibly.
is 31 and he turns 32 in May 8th. So he's starting to get up there a bit.
Good thing he plays first base.
Yeah, that's helpful. Over under D Gordon 30 steals, which would be near a career high.
I'm gonna go under. I don't think he's gonna get on base enough to do it, or the plate appearances.
Right. I will take the over. I think that he will get the second base job and he'll be able to hold it down long enough, and then they will keep him on the roster as a pinch runner late in games, and he'll get some steals that way.
Very true.
Hanley Ramirez, over under 30 home runs.
I'm gonna say under. I think pitchers are gonna be a lot more careful with him this year. I think that last year was kind of a show me year for pitchers and Hanley Ramirez, and he clearly showed he still has it. So I think you're gonna see hitters or pitchers stay away from him a little bit more than they did last year. But it's very possible you could get that. I just don't see him hitting 340 again. I think he'll probably hit closer to like 305, 310 with like maybe 28 home runs and 100 RBIs. Which is just incredible production from the shortstop position.
Yeah, I think that he'll move to third base during his next contract, but I would take the under on 30 home runs. But I think he's going to hit 310, have a 380 on base, just be just a dime. The best hitter on this team, in my opinion, will be Hanley Ramirez. All right, Matt Kemp. Over or under 100 games played.
I'm severely hoping it's over, so I'm going to have to say over.
Okay.
He's one of the most talented outfielders in the NL, and I just really hope he gets a chance to be healthy. Because he really hadn't been hurt his entire career until the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's completely accurate. So with that being said, over or under 25 home runs.
I'm going to say under, just because he's going to be coming back off injury, may only play 120 games. And he may just be more focused on trying to get back into that groove of hitting as opposed to just like coming out and lighting it out.
I would take the over on the home runs, but I think he's going to hit around 250.
Really? So
Yeah.
I think the exact opposite.
I think that he's going to try to go for the fences, try to prove that he's worth his contract, try to prove that he should be the starting center fielder, and it's really going to sap his batting average, and I think it's going to hurt him a lot and make it very hard for them to trade him if that's what they wish to do in the next offseason, as they were rumored to do this year. So, Yasiel Puig, another player we didn't really talk about much, very talked about young baseball player, 23 years old, showed a lot of promise, does a lot of interesting things on the baseball field. One of his favorite activities is overthrowing the cutoff man when he's trying to go from the stands to the home plate when someone's on first. So, Will Puig hit over 300 in batting average?
No.
Okay. Will he hit over 25 home runs?
Yes.
Will he steal 20 bases?
Yes.
What is okay? OPS over under 900.
Under.
Okay. We pretty much agree on all those except for the steals. I don't think he's going to be running that much. I
Yeah.
think a lot of that has to do with the fact that last year he had 11 stolen bases and 8 caught stolens. So that's definitely not something that is very helpful to your team.
Right.
You're just creating outs.
Can I do one over under for Puig?
Yes.
Over under 15 bat hurls. Or bat just
Strike out and you just hook your bat.
no, like home run flips, bat flips.
Oh, over. He's going to flip the bat.
Every time
Yep.
almost.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. All right, we're going to do Greinke and then Kershaw, and then we're going to move on. And then, really quick, I got to talk about my boy. Over under 100 strikeouts for Kenley Jansen.
I'm gonna say over.
I'm taking over as well.
It's gonna be really close, but he probably pitches
He'll pitch
70
Yeah.
innings and his K9's over 10. So
Well, it was 13 last year.
yeah, but
In 2011, it was 16.10 in 53 innings.
Jesus.
So in 2012, he had 100 strikeouts. In 2013, 111 last year.
Oh yeah,
So,
he'll get there then.
Yeah, and I also think his save number could double. Last year, it was only 28.
Oh yeah.
This
he
year,
does.
he could hit 50.
Yeah.
He
no.
could. He should win the.
He could even get the record.
The
He's
team
that
is good
good,
enough to
and
get
the
the
team's
record.
that good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep your faith. For those of you in fantasy, Kenley Jansen, in our opinion, should be the number one closer if you're going to pay. If you get those guaranteed
If you're gonna
saves.
pay someone,
Yeah.
that's the guy you want to pay.
Exactly.
You can let somebody else bid on Kimbrel and Chapman. You want this guy.
So Zach Greinke, over under 3 ERA. I brought it up so you know my opinion on this
I think
matter.
it's just over.
Okay. Strikeouts, 170.
Under.
I take the over on that. Whip, 1.15. Over under.
Under.
Okay, I take the under as well.
I think he's gonna pitch to contact, so he won't have a lot of that.
Okay. And we're saving the best for last. Clayton Kershaw. Kyle, I'm going to put you on the spot and switch it up a bit. So you're going to throw the numbers at me, and I'm going to
Alright.
break this out, and then you can respond. Because,
Go ahead. Oh.
yeah, you're going to do it. What do you mean,
Oh.
go ahead? Are you
I
listening?
don't know. For some reason, I was thinking you were gonna give me the over/unders you'd already picked. Sorry.
No.
So Clayton Kershaw, over/under 220 innings.
I don't believe this fluff that they're going to try to rest him. He's getting over 220 innings.
Okay. Over/under 165 hits. We're going all the way on Kershaw.
We are going to take the over on that.
Okay. Over/under 55 walks.
We're going to take the over on that as well.
Okay. Over/under 240 strikeouts.
And we're going to take the under on that.
Okay.
That's a very high number.
He's only done it once. Over/under 7 WAR.
We're going to take the over on that.
Okay.
The massive innings he throws really helps with that number.
Now the last over/under 2.2 ERA.
Under, but he won't be under 2. He'll be at like a 2.16.
Disappointing year for Kershaw.
Absolutely. You go 1.8 to 2.16, it's fucking ridiculous. Indeed, not even worth that
Well,
extension.
It does seem like if you get a 1.83 ERA, like a lot of the pitchers who have ever done that seem to repeat it the next year.
Pedro was very
Pedro
close.
and Maddox both did that.
Yeah, they're Maddox. Let's
those-
not talk about Maddox.
Those are just two of the guys that come
He's
to mind. I'm
amazing.
sure there's plenty of other guys who've had years that didn't do that, but those guys just pop out to my head. So, moving along to the San Francisco Giants, I believe.
Absolutely. The San Francisco Giants, in their opinion, had a very disappointing year last year. They went from World Series champion to missing the
I
playoffs.
love that you said in their opinion.
In the offseason, they decided that they wanted to refocus themselves on the starting pitching, and their idea of doing that was giving Tim Lincecum $18 million per year. They also gave a 1 year, I believe, $10.5 million deal to Tim Hudson to try to solidify the rotation.
I think it was 2 years.
Yeah, whatever it was too much. Buster Posey, the former MVP, is still at the heart of this lineup. But in my opinion, I'll let Kyle go first. Obviously, this is a team that thinks too highly of itself. They have two really good starting pitchers. They have a very good bullpen, and they have a lot of black holes in that lineup. So, Kyle, would you like to talk about some of those lineup issues?
Well, I like some of the things they're doing. I think Brandon Crawford's a good defensive shortstop.
That can't hit. The new Brandon Ryan.
He really hasn't increased very much over the last couple of years, but his OBP has steadily climbed every year. So that's kind of like what you look for as far as like a savvy defensive shortstop who's still only 27 years old. Either way, that is kind of a hole in the lineup. To expect the production that Marco Scutaro gave you last year is kind of like the Rockies banking on Kadire doing what he did again last year.
Or the Juan Uribe not being a big pile of shit for the Dodgers.
Yeah. There are some professional hitters on this team. I really like...
like Marco Scutaro.
Like Sandoval and Posey are both really good hitters.
Yes, Kung Fu Panda in a contract year.
Yeah.
Alert.
She could definitely play.
Apparently he's lost weight again for the 19th straight off season. So yeah, that's the thing to look at.
Well, I want to say last year was the opposite. He came into camp really big.
I don't think that he pulled the Jesus Montero where he said this year that he just sat on his couch and ate.
The other day.
Yes, he did, but he's Montero, and I don't believe it.
I know, right? Like you don't even believe the home runs happened. It's
no.
It's just like
it's kind of like him on a treadmill. It's just a myth.
Anyways, I like some of their outfielders. Hunter Pence has moxie at the plate. He's not my preferred outfielder, obviously, but I mean, if you're gonna ask me who I prefer, him or anybody in San Diego's outfield, I'd probably take him. Maybe I'd take Will Ventress, but I'm not sure.
Who? You mean Will Venable?
Will Venable, sorry.
Not Will Ventress? Which sounds like a very cool name, by the way.
I didn't have his name in front of me, and I'd already forgot it from earlier. So, that being said, this is a very underachieving team, at least on paper. Angel Pagan, they doled out some money to. Michael Morris is an absolutely horrible outfielder and an absolutely horrible average hitter and an absolutely horribly overrated home run hitter. I'm glad that he found a home for his sake. That being said, how do you feel about this lineup? Do you project Brandon Belt to hit 290 again? Do you think that Hunter Pence is going to fall off a cliff, which everyone's been predicting for a long time, but somehow he still keeps that batting average right around 280? Do you think Pagan's good enough in center field to even warrant playing there?
I just want to say that last year Hunter Pence surprised me. As Kyle would know, as a friend of mine for a while, I've never been the biggest Hunter Pence fan.
Not much to be a fan of.
But what did he do last year? 800 OPS, 22 steals, only 3 caught, solid corner defense, and he got a very reasonable contract for that production.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is 30.
And he hits well in the postseason.
Yeah, he's just,
He's like that random hitter. Like he's got that swing. He just looks so rambunctious in his swing and the way he approaches the plate. I think he's a little intimidating.
I will say that I feel like he has a very good outfield arm.
Yeah.
But he just surprised me last year, and I feel like if they get anything close to that, it's really good to have him hitting right behind Posey, who is an MVP caliber hitter. Having him a catcher is very valuable, but at the same time, just like with Joe Mauer, I feel like it saps some of his power potential. I am a very big believer in Brandon Belt. I feel like he's going to be the cog that kind of carries this offense if Pence falls off. Last year we saw some improvements and his
finally.
Yeah, and he really adjusted his batting stance and it really helped him out. He's really big. He's going to have a all-star level year this year for me. I feel like he could easily be an all-star first baseman.
Really?
Yeah, if it was him and Joey Votto at the all-star game at first base, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Does have back-to-back 360 OBP seasons.
He takes walks, and his slugging rose 60%, and I think it's going to rise again. And I think he's going to be around 900 OPS and have a WAR of about 5 to 6.
No, it looks better than I remember.
I mean, he will be the second best first baseman in this division behind Goldschmidt, who we'll talk about later. who
Yeah.
probably should have won the MVP last year, but his team didn't make the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, just Buster Posey. Kyle, what do you think about the drop off he had from 2012 to 2013?
I was really surprised, especially because he already took a year off of baseball because of that concussion and that knee surgery. So I wouldn't have expected the normal wear and tear that could have settled in there, even though he is only 26. I just think he felt the burden of, like a really underperforming lineup. I feel like he kind of thought
Did
he
he
had to...
try to force it too much in terms of the trying to hit too many home runs or something?
Well, he actually struck out a lot less than he ever has before, so it's like, I don't feel like
That those two things usually don't correlate. So.
Exactly. So it's like I don't really feel like that was the case. I
mean,
think that his contact, when he did make contact, when you're the only player, like one of the only players in a lineup that a pitcher actually fears, they're gonna do everything they can to shut you down. And I think that's kind of what we saw with Posey, was when even though Pence had a good year, Belt had a good year, I think that the lack of depth behind them kind of hurt Posey a little bit. Without looking at any advanced metrics that like
the BABIP.
Yeah.
It might have been BABIP fueled as well. So it's just interesting to look at why someone that good, just had to drop off after an MVP year when he's 26.
He's still batted .294. It's not like by any means that's a great production for
Absolutely.
a pitcher, but
It's great production for any position.
Willen Rosario was better than Buster Posey last year. And that's
I don't know
just
about
nuts.
that.
How he had better average, he had more home runs, he had more RBIs.
A lot less walks and RBIs are irrelevant to me.
It is what it is, though. But for the price, that's always got to be considered because Posey's making Joe Mauer money now.
Yeah, he is.
Without having, his isolated power metrics fell a ton.
That's what I'm saying. The home runs dropped, the doubles dropped. It's just a little concerning.
Yeah.
Not to say he can't fix it and have a monster year again, but
He's experienced that before, so it's not like overly, just totally gross. But I don't know. I think that they're gonna struggle, just because if the injury bug even comes remotely near San Francisco, they are gonna have a hard time replacing a lot of these guys.
yeah, they have no depth.
No depth, really anywhere. But with that being said, if they're healthy, they're still a team to be reckoned with. They still have a decent pitching staff. I like their 1 through 3s. Lincecum, I think, was a lot better last year than people gave him credit for. I don't think he warranted that type of money, but I think he puts out a sub-4 ERA. I think the Giants know what they're looking at. They've seen this kid pitch for like the last 7 or 8 years, and they really know him pretty well. And just the fact of how much money they gave him right off the bat before he could even really hit free agency tells you that they really, really believe in him still. And so I got to think that he's going to have a bounce back year. So that being said, I feel confident in their 1 through 4s. I think Vogelsong has the potential to pitch for contact, and like he had that great year 2 years ago. So there's a lot of questions surrounding Hudson and Lincecum, but it's possible they have bounce back seasons. We both talked about this earlier. We expect Kane to have a bounce back season. We threw a perfect game through 5 innings today. How do you feel about this starting lineup, and do you think there's anybody that they can rely on if they don't get the production 4 and 5 like they need, or?
I will say that last year I predicted Madison Bumgarner to win the National League Cy Young, and I wasn't that far off. He was incredible, and he may be my pick when we do the predictions podcast to win it this year. He was the best pitcher last year. He was a top 5 pitcher in the National League without question. He was right there, right behind Kershaw and Jose Fernandez and Wainwright. He was in that next group with Cliff Lee and Madison Bumgarner. They were right there in that amazing second tier based off what happened last year. Matt Cain, I've never been a huge fan of his, but he just produces. There's no denying that. And I'm very concerned about Vogelsong right now. I think he's ready to fall off that cliff a little bit and have an ERA of above 5 again and be done, which is sad to see. But they're just not much ready on the minors. Their best prospect, Kyle Crick, probably can help them. much until September.
Yeah, and
I mean,
he's got bad command issues.
yeah,
so it's
I
not
will
like
say
he
that
can-
I really like the bullpen still. Sergio Romo's an extremely good closer. Casilia's a really great setup man, and that's a nice 1-2 punch. It's not as good as the Dodgers, but it's still very good. Yeah, Kyle, anything on the bullpen you want to bring up? Any minor players? Alfdelt has family in the area, so that's always cool. So
I mean, Heath Humbre's been on the cusp of making it into the MLB for the last 2 years. Dallas, no. So who knows about that guy? Besides that, they just really need to stay healthy. I mean, that's pending like a mid-season trade. There's just not a lot to look forward to here. And I know we sound, unfortunately a little bit down on some of your guys' favorite teams, and we apologize for not giving you a better chance at optimism. But we're not going to lie to you. And
if we don't like what we see, we're going to let you know. And if we're wrong, we're wrong.
yeah,
But
feel free to tweet us and tell us how wrong we are. We'd actually really relish the opportunity to just get better. So, that being said, I mean, we're not saying that this team can't do some damage. What we're saying is
a lot of
that
things have to go right.
a lot of things have to go right, and when you don't have anybody on the bench to help make that happen, it tends to scare off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sure, Hunter Pence could hit 327 home runs again.
They really
Do you
could.
really think that's going to
Yeah.
happen again, though?
They could have a really good 2 through 5 batting, though. I will say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then maybe even if Pagan, stays relevant. I mean, if they go Pagan, Posey, Kung Fu Panda, Pence, Belt, that could be a really dangerous 1 through 5 with the improvement I expect from Brandon Belt.
Yeah. Okay, but looking at the other side real quick, looking to later on, midway through the season, if they are struggling and it looks like they're not going to make the playoffs, which is probably pretty likely, do you see them trying to trade Kung Fu Panda at the deadline to
Try
just
to get
kind of
some
restock
prospects?
that farm and maybe move on? I mean, they've had their issues with him, so it might be best to just get a clean break and hope you can, most of their farm system is pitching.
Yep.
So they really need
Their best
a
batter.
better outfield prospect to
Yeah.
replace Michael Morse.
Yeah, their best hitting prospect, or at least someone who I'm a fan of, is Andrew Susak, the catcher. But at the same time, he's not, an elite bat. So, and then you have to move Posey to first base, and then what do you do with Bell? Or, do you just, try to trade
He
the
seems
catcher
athletic
for
that
some...
He could play right field if he had to.
I would put him in the left just because the arm isn't as many. But still, a lot of people talk about Chase Headley going to the Yankees, but what's to stop them from trading Panda to the Yankees?
Yeah.
I mean, he could kill it in that short porch right there.
Yes, he could.
And that's the type of player that they'll just re-sign for crazy money.
Well, and him and CeCe would just be awesome together.
If you want to talk, I mean, think about the hot wing eating contest them two can have. I guess in CeCe's case, a hummus eating contest these days.
Right. Him
But,
and Field are all on that vegan diet.
So, over-unders?
All right.
All right, Buster Posey, over-under 20 home runs.
I'm going to say over. He's going to have a little bounce-back season to his MVP year, hopefully.
Okay. Madison Bumgarner. I'm just going to jump right into my favorite player in this team. Over-under ERA under 2.5.
Oh, under.
I'm taking under.
2.5? Yeah.
Yeah. Over-under 200 strikeouts.
Over.
I take over as well.
He's so hard to hit.
Over-under 1 whip.
Under.
I take the under, so we're both very high on him this
Yeah.
year. Okay. Matt Cain. Over-under ERA of 3.
I'm going to say over.
Okay,
I don't think it's a lot over, but it's probably going to be in the 3
ones.
to 3.3 range.
Yeah, he'll be in the 3-1 range. I mean, he had a ERA of 4 last year, but the year before that, 2.79, and the year before that, 2.88. But then you see those great numbers, and you're like, why is his wins above replacement only 3.3 and 3.6? So that's when you have to dig into those deeper stats we were talking about and figure out why the advanced metrics don't like him as much. Then you look at his K per 9 and his walk per 9 and his FIP and all those things, and that's why, a lot of the analytical community didn't think he was a true ace.
Yeah, he's much more. He's like the prototypical definition of a gamer.
Yeah, he's the 2 you need, and which is great with Bumgarner clearly becoming their best pitcher. So, Oh, Kyle's a big fan of this gentleman, so let's talk about him. Tim Lincecum. ERA under 3.5.
I say he does it.
Okay, so
I'm big on Lincecum. I think he showed a plus curve last year that he hadn't shown throughout his career. Sliders obviously fallen off, but I still think he could throw it if he needed to. And his fastball's always had really good movement on it. So I think, and his changeups is nothing to balk at either. So I think he's going to bounce back. I think the Giants know what they were doing on that, which is something I don't usually say, but.
how many does he crack 200 strikeouts? Does he
Yes.
restart the streak?
Yep.
Okay, how about a long-term one? We haven't done many of these. Will he get to 3,000 strikeouts in his career? Right now, he's at 1510 at age 29.
I don't think so. I think he's probably got another 1 or 2 more years before he just goes to the pen and becomes a elite reliever, where he can start to work on his velocity again. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he could really do that?
I think he can. I think that he's going to be
He
able
does
to
strike out a lot of dudes, even when he's not pitching well. So.
Yeah, he's going to be able to manage to stay in the rotation and just crank out 170, K seasons until he's 35, 36 with his windup and the type of, plane that he somehow gets with only being 5'11". So I feel like he could be, a sleeper contender if he can stay in a rotation to get 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Because he's not even cracked 30 yet, so.
Yeah, no, and he's already over halfway there, which is really nice. Because if he has another 200 strikeout season, he's really close.
Exactly.
He's legitimately 5 years old. That's crazy to think of Lincecum as a 3,000 strikeout guy.
Yeah,
Especially
he has
the
2
last
Cy Youngs, though.
well,
People forget how incredible he was.
But people forget how much he was striking out the last 2 years, even.
Yeah.
You would not think a guy with that high of an ERA is still averaging 190 strikeouts.
Right.
And not even 200 innings.
Yeah.
So
Sergio Romo, the closer, does he get 40 saves?
I think so. I think the team will win, even if the team doesn't win a lot.
Well, they
he'll
should
still
be
get his
close
opportunity.
games.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets there, and I think he loses his job, and he'll get hurt, and that's why he'll lose his job.
Yeah.
Casilli, I think. So I think him and Casilli will both be over 20.
Okay, I can see that.
And then I really like Javier Lopez too. I really love this bullpen. And then the last one, Kung Fu Panda, over or under 20 home runs.
I think in the contract year he's going to get over.
Okay.
He's got some power.
What about an average of 290?
He needs to hit 290, so I'm going to go ahead and say over.
I agree with both of those.
Yeah.
So, we're both supporters of the Kung Fu Panda movement. So, moving on, the next team we're going to talk about is a team that we're both kind of expecting to be better than people think they're going to be in terms of we kind of think they could be the second best team in this division, and that is the Colorado Rockies. This is another team that made a lot of minor moves. They traded Dexter Fowler in a deal to the Houston Astros for Jordan Lyles.
Horrible trade.
I agree with that, and the main reason I don't like the trade is because they already have a lot of pitching that's kind of on Lyles' level. I mean, I feel like we should just start talking about the pitching because I brought that trade up. So, they traded for Brett Anderson in a very minor deal, and I've always been a big, huge fan of his. The main issue with him has always been staying healthy. So I feel like that he could stay healthy in Colorado. But when you just look at their starting pitching, Kyle, can you talk to us about how underrated it was last year and how many just really solid 3 starters they seem to have right now?
Yeah, Chatwood was really good. He's still only 25. Jalis Jason was pretty decent. He had a ERA
Pretty decent.
under 4.
He was fantastic. He was 3.47.
Yeah, he was fantastic, but
For what you expect out of him, he was fantastic.
That's why I said pretty decent.
197 innings.
Exactly. I don't know if you can expect that again, which might move him back in this rotation a little bit. So that's the main reason why I say that. But, looking at their bullpen, I like Hawkins, I like Brothers. I think this pitching staff, when you play in a stadium like that, pitching's more important than hitting because if you can, your hitters are going to hit well, especially with that Colorado air. And I think that this is a team that a lot of people weren't expecting, and we'll get to some of their younger guys here in a minute after we go through over the lineup, but they have 2 really good pitchers that they could possibly roll out this season, and that's scary.
Yeah,
because the top three of their starting rotation are. If they keep that up again, they're a really good team.
Yeah, and De La Rosa, although he's 32, he missed 2012 with injury, and he came back fairly quickly and didn't really fall off from his good numbers in 2011. In fact, he was a lot better. I mean, 170 innings last year almost, coming off that injury, so this year he's going to be able to throw more. Maybe he feels a bit more freedom, some of the velocity might be able to come back, or maybe he can add a little bit more sharpness on the breaking stuff because he feels a little bit less concerned about the injury. So, this rotation is very underrated, and you wouldn't think that because of all the stigma about pitchers in Colorado for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely had a career year. In 2011, 2013.
Yeah, but in 2011 he only had 60 innings.
But both of those came in Colorado, and that's hard to do. So hopefully he keeps it going. I think that more than anything, we're enamored with the potential of this starting rotation.
Yeah.
I don't think we're definitely not trying to convince everybody out there that this is a legitimate rotation because there's still a lot of question marks.
And at the moment, there's no ace. There's not even a number 2 starter, in my opinion. They could be on the way, but they're not there right now for sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot of question marks, but good question marks.
Yeah.
Not like bad question marks. Like these guys could actually, end up pitching pretty well. Obviously, once you look at the pitching staff and some of their relievers, you tend to take a step back and then look at their hitting lineup and see if they're going to do very well. Cargo, incredible player. Kadir, don't expect to see that type of performance again. But the fact is, he's a very tough at bat. And I like the Drew Stubbs pickup. Provides speed, defense. He can get a couple bags for you.
Maybe he'll be motivated to actually get a starting spot instead of a platoon job.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that he'll have a good chance. I really like his chances this year, and maybe he can learn a thing or two from Cargo. That Joey Votto couldn't teach him, or.
Joey, the Reds.
Yeah. Okay. I was for some reason. Did he play in Cleveland last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He was. The swap of Chu pretty much is kind of what happened.
So maybe he'll do better, especially in that Colorado air. It just does wonders for hitters' confidence. Willen Rosario's a great catcher.
He's a great batting catcher who doesn't take walks. I wouldn't say he's a great defensive catcher.
I think he's okay though. I mean,
before they signed Morneau,
there were staff of under 4 ERAs.
Well, at the same time, before they signed Morneau, there were heavy rumors they wanted to move him to first base. Is all I'm saying.
Seems to be a common trend. I don't even know why people waste their time trying to develop catchers anymore.
Well, because if you can get one that can bat, that's great defensively. It's a huge thing for your team.
They always end up moving though. By the time they're 27 or 28.
Well, then their knees start to give out, and you want to keep that bat in the lineup.
Right. So, either way, couple interesting guys here on the infield. Nick Arenado.
Nolan Arenado.
Nolan, sorry.
I just want to interject because I'm a really big fan and believer of Nolan Arenado. This dude is absolutely incredible defensively. You go Machado, and then he might be second. Right there with Longoria and Beltre, and then as those two slip, Arenado's going to be the one challenging. Machado is the best defensive third baseman,
really young.
At the moment. Yeah, very young, came up very early. I'm not going to, he definitely struggled last year, but there are really good things that you want to look at. I mean, he had solid slugging numbers for how bad his average was, but he still was almost a 4-WAR player because of his defense. And he has good size, 6'1", 205, 22 still, turns 23, 2 weeks into the season. And I could easily see him hitting, 275, 280, getting those home runs up over 20, getting the RBI up over 80, increasing his walks for sure, something he needs to focus on because he barely cracked 300 on base percentage.
Yeah, but he didn't strike out that much. So he's got a really disciplined approach for a guy who's only 22 years old.
It just seems like, he just wanted to make contact.
He'll turn 23 at the very beginning of the season.
2 weeks into it, yep.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Like, that's... anytime you have a player who's not good at hitting and is already a 3.5 WAR player, you really need to just keep that guy where he's at.
If there's potential that he's shown in the minors that he can hit, you just gotta be patient with the young players sometimes. That goes for Mariner fans that are listening to this. it's kind of it's not something we want to hear, but it works out most places. So.
It does. Tulowitzki had a great year last year. He's definitely the rock of this lineup with Cargo.
Him and Cargo are the dominant 3-4 hitters, and they're both MVP candidates when healthy, when the team's going right.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that those guys.
Now, what about this first baseman pickup, Kyle Smith? Because I know you're in love with this man.
I love Justin Morneau. I think he's a great player. He's kind of dropped off dropped off in power the last 3 years. But I mean, for a long time, this guy was pretty much 30 home runs in the bag for about 4 years straight. He makes good contact. I think he's been overburdened throughout his career with trying to be the guy because Mauer got hurt so much. He's been hurt too. Struggled to stay healthy. But I think this is a guy that's going to see some serious revitalization on his pop. I mean, the guy, you may not look at his home runs last year and say, oh, wow, that's something I'm really going to bank on. But he had 36 doubles. I mean, this is, in the years where he was batting 34, 31, and 30 home runs, he only averaged 32 doubles. So this is a guy who still showed he had the power. It just wasn't necessarily translating into home runs. Well, guess where he's at now? A lot of those doubles are going to turn into home runs. If not, those doubles are going to possibly even go up. Very disciplined batter. He's just got a lot of plate presence. His OBP isn't insane, but when he did come to Pittsburgh, he had a 370 OBP last year. So that's just something valuable that you really can't teach. He's still relatively in his prime, potentially. I mean, 32 years old is not that old for a first baseman. I look at this guy and say he's gonna have a really big bounce back year. This is gonna be the best lineup he's been in years. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh had a good lineup, but even their lineup
Pittsburgh isn't that good, the lineup though. I mean,
No, but
McCutchen MVP, Alvarez is a monster power, but I mean,
Neil
Marte
Walker's
is
okay.
interesting. There's not
Marte
much.
had a good year.
Walker's bad last year.
Well, I said he was okay.
Okay.
He's an okay second baseman. He's not like you could do worse. And speaking of worse, if anybody's ever heard of DJ LeMahieu, this is a guy that could do worse, but could also do a lot better. He's still really young. He's only 25 years old. He batted .280 last year and over 400 plate appearances. I'm not by any means taking his check to the bank because I don't think it might bounce on me. But, it's possible. I mean, he doesn't walk very much, which might be an issue, but he doesn't strike out a whole bunch. He had 18 stolen bases, plays decent second base, and he was above average WAR player last year. So, granted, he only had 400 at-bats, but I mean, I feel like you could do a lot worse at second base.
Well, Josh Rutledge is definitely not the answer. I think we figured that out.
Yeah.
His on-base percentage barely cracked 300. So.
Yeah, and so obviously you don't expect Kadire probably to have that same year, but
No, I don't even think Kadire is going to hit over 290.
Really?
Yeah, he's going to drop off hard. But what did he do in 2012? Hit 260.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be around 280.
Yeah.
285. I don't think he cracks 300. If there's an over-under in Vegas and it's not set at like 290, I'm taking the under.
All right, well, call me. I'll take that bet too.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, just kind of agree with a lot of Kyle said on this lineup. Obviously, if Cargo and Tulo stay healthy, they have a chance to pretty much get 4 or 5 runs any game, especially with Rosario's monster power numbers. I am concerned about Rosario at catcher defensively. I think that he has a lot of room to grow there. I'm definitely not sold on Morneau at all. I'm not a big fan of what he's done lately, and I feel like a lot of that is because of injuries. But, that's unfortunate, of course, but I just not a believer of what I'm seeing out of him lately. Love Arenado. The outfield really bugs me and scares me. Like I said, Kadire, not that good defensively at all. Kind of a liability. I don't think he's going to hit that well. I don't think he's going to crack 20 home runs. I'm very down on Kadire. I think they probably should have tried to trade him instead of Fowler, if you ask me. Especially with Fowler being younger. But, Corey Dickerson and Stubbs, that's going to be an interesting platoon just to see what they can do with, some competition of people kind of on their similar level. I don't expect much out of either. But talking about those 2 pitching prospects we mentioned earlier, their supplemental first-round draft pick 2 years ago, Eddie Butler and their first round pick, number 4 overall, I believe, last year, Jonathan Gray, who might have been second. Was he second or fourth? I think he was second.
He was second after
Yep.
Pell.
Yep. So they both could make noise this season. And Kyle, from what you've read, because we obviously haven't seen him in person outside of maybe a couple YouTube videos. I've seen a few videos on Gray. But what do you expect? Like, do they get called up this year? Are they going to replace anyone? Are they going to be the next wave of power arms in Colorado?
I will say I don't know a ton about Eddie Butler. I've heard a bunch of great things.
He's definitely blown up in the rankings from last year to this year.
Big time.
Yeah, he's like a top 25 guy now.
Yes, he is, and I did not see that coming personally. But then again, I didn't. His name was at the his name was at the bottom of the list last year, so there wasn't really any reason for me to like overly believe in him. The guy I am just super sold on as ace of this staff is Jonathan Gray. He's super tall, 6'6", big chunky guy, over 240 pounds. Just got a mean fastball. He just gets guys out. He's intimidating plate presence.
Oklahoma country boy, he has that country strength.
Dude.
Sits like 96, like Matt Harvey can hit 100.
If you've ever thought Brett Favre was a football or a baseball player, it's Jonathan Gray. Like,
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
that type of like, I'm from the country and I'm gonna just strike you out. Like, I probably doesn't talk that way. I haven't watched him in an interview, but I'm just saying.
He has solid secondary stuff that's still developing. A decent slider, not Jose Fernandez, Chris Sale, Darvish level, but definitely an above average pitch. And if he gets that changeup to above average, he could just walk in and be a number 3 starter without additional command and control development because of how great that fastball is.
Yeah, no, he's going to be an absolute all-star. That being said, though, I don't know how much I'm really banking on Tyler Chatwood to continue his success.
I like Chatwood a lot.
I am not that impressed. He had 111 innings. He had 118 hits. He only had 66 strikeouts. He had almost 50 batters walked. I think he kind of got lucky, which is surprising given the ballpark he's in. Maybe he is still really young, and that's why we mentioned him earlier as a potential like nice piece in that rotation. But the numbers do not favor him right now. So that's kind of like where I would imagine Gray moving into to replace. I mean, obviously, Nicasio is not very good either, but
No.
I mean, he's at least, I don't know. I just feel like Chad would potentially like fall off a cliff, like with how bad some of his advanced pitching stats are. That being said, maybe he just continues to get better, and maybe he's one of those guys like a Matt Cain who doesn't have the best stuff but just gets you out. Because, I mean, if you were going to tell me that a guy with a 7.5 K per 9 was going to be a $140 million pitcher, I would have laughed at you. So
Yeah, I'm actually a big believer in Chatwood. I think he's going to settle in as a very good,
He might.
4-starter
He
that can pitch as a 3-1,
but if I'm
from
going to
time
play
to time.
devil's advocate, he's the one who I look at as just being like, ooh. Just
Right.
because, Nicasio's, he's just he's a little older, he's been around a little bit longer, so maybe he's got better strikeout numbers, gives up probably about the same amount of hits, but it's just something to look at. I mean, I think either one of those guys, depending on who struggles, is going to be the guy, especially, this is all assuming Brett Anderson's healthy,
Yeah.
which is a big question, so.
Yeah, Brett Anderson's very good when healthy, but that's a big if. And there's a reason Oakland decided to cut ties, and they don't usually do that with, high upside pitchers like that. So let's do some over-unders, and then we can move on to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, reliever we both really like, Rex Brothers, over-under 80 strikeouts.
I'm going to say under.
I'm going to take the over on that. He's 26, very good K9 rate, 11.7 as a career, over 10 last year. Very good at what he's doing, and I think he's going to take that closer job from Troy Hawkins, and I think that he's going to be extremely successful.
Very possible.
Yeah. All right, Tyler Chatwood, ERA over under 4.
I'm going to say over. But
Really?
it probably won't be a lot over. I
Okay.
think he'll be which is not bad, considering this team can do some damage on offense. So if he can stay right around that 4 to 4.2, right in there, he'll be fine.
Okay, I think he'll be under, but just under. I think he'll be like a 3.8 range.
Okay.
Jorge De La Rosa, over under 180 innings pitched.
I'm gonna have to say under.
Okay.
I just don't know if he's got the strength to do it. Which kind of raises some more concerns about this about this lineup. But I think he probably hit over at 170. So I think he'll just be right in there. But I don't know if he'll quite get over 180 just because I just don't think he will.
All right. Willen Rosario. Over under 20 home runs.
Over.
Okay. So.
Kind of experienced a little bit of a drop last year, but I think he'll get that back up because his average went up so
Right.
much.
So over under 315 on base percentage.
I'm gonna say over. I think
Okay.
he's gonna continue to just keep getting better, and that's not a very good on base percentage. So I'm
Well, he
really,
had 315 last year.
yeah, but I'm really hoping he gets better because that's not good.
Over
Even
under
if you bat 290.
over under 500 slugging.
Oh, with the increase in homers and the increase in OBP, I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be over. I'm hoping
Okay.
he gets a lot of.
Nolan Arenado. Over under 280 average.
You mean Nick?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say over.
Okay, I agree with you.
You've kind of sold me on him. This is a guy who's. Anytime a player's that good on defense and still shows in their first year that they can bat decently, you got to think that they just have 267's decent for a 22-year-old kid.
20 home runs?
I don't think so.
I think he gets over 20 home runs.
Okay.
Troy Tulowitzki. Over under top 5 in the MVP finish.
Under because injuries are always going to hold him back from that.
Okay.
I don't see him playing the whole season again.
Same question for Carlos Gonzalez.
God, he's been due for a while. And this is probably one of the better lineups they've had in a couple years. I'm gonna say over.
Okay.
He's gonna be right in that fifth spot.
All right. So we're moving on to the Arizona Diamondbacks here, and we're kind of running a bit short on the time here from what we like to aim on. But they wanted to make a really big splash. They really wanted an ace pitcher. It didn't happen, so they decided to greatly overpay Bronson Arroyo, one of Kyle's favorites, who now he hates just based on the contract he got. They definitely have
Thanks to
some.
that, Arizona.
Archie Bradley, I feel like, is going to win a spot and be this year's Jose Fernandez. And they also, maybe for next year, Brandon Shipley, who's someone they drafted last year. I'm a very big fan of as another prospect. Their pitching's very up and down. Trevor Cahill never really developed like people thought. Patrick Corbin really fell off in the second half, but still just 24. Wade Miley kind of fell off from what people are expecting. I was never a fan. Brandon McCarthy's 30 and feels like he's having some sort of issue with his arm or getting hit by a baseball pitch, unfortunately. This rotation has a lot of questions, but the one thing you can really say for sure about this team is they have some absolute thumpers in the middle of this lineup. They can hit 40 homers each, and Paul Goldschmidt and Mark Trumbo.
Yeah, and not to mention that if Aaron Hill can hit the way he did 2 years ago,
And stay on the field.
Yeah, which was over 320. I think that's going to be an OBP machine for you. They're really looking forward to the Didi Gregorius.
And Chris Owings battle
Yeah,
at shortstop.
I gotta think that Didi's going to win it just because he's been there in their farm system for a while, and they refused to trade him a couple years ago. So you got to think that they've got a lot of faith in him.
He has no power.
No, zero power. But he's a good shortstop. Defensively.
Right.
And he needs to figure out how to get on base.
Yes, he does.
If he can't get on base this year, I wouldn't even be surprised if, nobody wants him.
Well, they have another good shortstop prospect in Chris Owings as well. So he could easily win the job and or take it if Didi struggles again.
Yeah, if he wins the job, I'd be proud of him. He's still a really young kid. He's only 22. Can't really say too much out of him, even though he had a 291 batting average last year, but only in 55.
I feel like he's overall better with the at-bat, and I think he's overall a better player, but I think Didi offers more potential if he ever were to reach it and figure out how to use his 6'2" frame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's very true. But they got solid guys. I like Gerardo Parra. I like Martin Prado just because they're those guys that you don't really notice, but they're solid. And Parra's he's only 26 years old.
Incredible defensively.
They got him locked up into a long extension. He's a tough at bat every single time he goes up there. And that's just the type of thing you're looking for in a outfielder or any positional player. So I gotta think that he's gonna try and get on base a little bit here and there, and hopefully Goldschmidt and Trumbo will do their thing. How do you feel about this lineup going forward? Do you think that Trumbo is actually gonna be what they thought he is? Was he worth giving up Tyler Skaggs, who would probably really nicely fill out that rotation and potentially could have saved them $10 million. Who do you think they could have got for $10 million in the opening market if they had saved that on Skaggs and went out and spent money on?
If they were going to spend money, I don't know why they just didn't, maybe try to make a run at Beltran for a small deal. They could have broken
almost the same amount of money, really.
Miguel Montero, he might be just can't hit anymore. Why not give McCann that deal that he got from the Yankees? That's another bandbox, another team that's close to. It was closer than the Yankees were before they made all their moves to winning. So there's just I don't really like this team. I don't like the general manager, although I love a lot of their drafting decisions. They have a lot of boomer bust players, and it always worries me as a fan and as an observer of the sport. Mark Trumbo could hit 40 home runs and have an OBP under 300.
Yeah.
That's totally possible because he was 294 last year and he had 34 home runs, and he's moving to a better hitter's park. But that's not going to make him take more walks, so I
just don't get why they traded Skaggs.
yeah.
I think he nitpicks a little bit.
If you
too
could
much,
go
but
Bradley, Shipley, Skaggs, Corbin, Miley,
that's
they're all under 26, I think.
Yeah, seriously, you're talking about a team that could just grow into that, and then you have the solid Goldschmidts, you have the Gerardo Parra, you have
Aaron Hill, Martin Prado, who you decided to lock up for too much money. This team is just they could. It wouldn't surprise me if they were second in this division, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they're last. That's kind of my thoughts on this team. I also don't understand the Addison Reed trade, by the way. Addison Reed's solid, but why trade a usable outfield piece for relievers? My thoughts. When JJ wasn't even that bad last year. He obviously health's an issue with him, but when he was pitching, he was very good. Had a K9, pretty much almost at 10 again.
Bell when they already had Boots on the roster.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They make a lot of strange moves in my opinion.
For every good move or every good draft pick they make an obscure pick. And they still have Randall Delgado, right?
Yeah.
And that's just
That's another interesting piece they have.
Looking at this roster, I'm almost thinking they have a better shot to take number 2.
They could.
Rockies have a little bit more star power, between Cargo and Tulo as opposed to Trumbo.
Goldschmidt was just second MVP, though.
Yeah, he is, but I think he's as productive as Tulo or Cargo. Give or take a couple stats here and there.
Yeah, 1-to-1, maybe Goldschmidt wins, but there is that definite big drop-off between what Tulo is going to do and what likely Trumbo is the second best power guy is going to do.
Yeah.
I really like Aaron Hill, like you said, but, do you want to anything else you want to add before we move into over-unders? We both love Archie Bradley. That dude's incredible.
I'm really impressed by their pitching staff. I think they're a really, really good pitching staff.
They have the depth that San Francisco thinks they have.
Yeah. And like I said, I really like Addison Reed. I think he's a lockdown closer. I've seen him pitch a number of times. He's kind of he's got a really quiet Yakuza-like swagger to him.
Okay.
Not bold, outlandish, just very stealthy, super ultra confident, keeps the ball down really, really, really low. That's hard to take out of the park.
With all that said, keeping the ball down, 2012 ERA 4.75 as the primary closer for the White Sox, and then last year 3.75, where he did get a lot better, whip got a lot better, but still, as your main closer, ERA close to 4.
Yeah, so, it's a little scary.
He's moving from one bandbox to another.
Yeah.
So let's move into the over-unders, and let's start with your anointed boy now. I'm putting him on the Kyle Smith, I'm a big fan of a list for their closers. Addison Reed over under 70 strikeouts.
I'm gonna say over.
I'm taking the under.
His strikeouts have improved every year. Well, pretty much with his innings increase, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
But he's walking less, and guys are not hitting quite as much on him. And he just kind of reminds me of a guy who's figuring it out.
Okay. Over under 40 saves.
Over.
I would take the under, and that's because I'm not a big believer in the team.
Yeah. I'm actually at this point
opportunity-wise.
willing to go on record saying I think Arizona's going to take second.
Well, we do the predictions at the end, which
I
I
know.
think we forgot in a podcast last week, but whatever. So you're a big Addison Reed guy, and I am not. We've established that. So,
By no means is he my favorite closer.
no,
I'm
we
saying.
just said that he is. So here's just a general question: Miguel Montero, more like 2012 or more like 2013?
Probably 2013.
Really, at 30, you think he's one of those catchers that just hit the wall and kind of started to fall off? Because I feel like his power, I could definitely see that being the slugging percentage staying under 400, but I think like his OBP could climb above 350 again.
Oh yeah, that's always a possibility. Just, I don't know. He's gonna have to stay healthy, and he's gonna have to.
He needs to cut the strikeouts down. That's a big issue with him the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's
I
very.
mean,
true.
even in his very good 2012 season, he had 130 and only 73 walks, and that 130 was only in 486 at bats. So that's definitely concerning. So, watch them strikeouts, Montero.
Right. Don't try and hit the home run. Let Trumbo do it.
Yeah, because he's not going to watch for the strikeouts. So, Paul Goldschmidt, over under 35 home runs.
I think he's going to do over.
Okay.
I think we're seeing a legitimate superstar.
Okay, I agree with you, by the way. Over under 125 RBIs.
I'm going to say.
I would take the over.
I'm going to have to say over just because I think there's a lot of guys that can get on base here. So.
Over under 12 stolen bases.
I'm going to say over 12, but if you had the number at 20, I don't think he gets there.
Right, he
just
hasn't
because-
never done 20 before. He did get 18 in 2012, though.
Yeah, I just think that as the home runs start to come more, you're going to see them try and preserve his health a little
He
more.
also was caught 7 times in 15 successful tries, so that's bad percentage, and that negatively
Should
affects your
almost
team.
be very telling to fantasy owners out there
Yeah.
who think that they're going to get that type of production out of him.
It's like they may curtail it because of his bad rate.
They might not just let him just
Yeah.
because of why.
They want to protect.
He's healthy,
yeah.
and you can get Prado to steal bases if you really
Or
want.
Aaron Hill maybe increase his attempts a little bit.
Go
And the last one for Goldie, average over under 300.
Over.
I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
But very close. But I could see it at, 294-ish.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but,
It's gonna be 6 and stones.
yeah.
It's not like I thought he was going to bat over 320. Although he could bat 320 if he was willing to take a serious hit on the home runs, but I don't think he wants to.
Let's do another general one. Chris Owings, DD, who's getting more at-bats at shortstop?
Man, Didi was horrible at the plate, so it's just like how much. I don't know. That's a really interesting question. I'm gonna lean towards the younger kid, just because we've seen Gregorius for a full year and it's not good.
I would definitely take Chris, and I don't think it's close.
Okay, sweet.
And we're going to do one more because there's a kind of a lack of just really interesting players on this team because a lot of the pitchers don't offer that top end stuff you'd like to guess about in terms of the over-unders, in terms of the starters. Mark Trumbo. Not a fan. You're not really a fan. But what I do find interesting is this. Will he finally break the threshold he's been chasing his entire career? And no, I'm not talking about 40 home runs, folks. I'm talking about 200 strikeouts in a season. Because I think he will.
Oh, in a contract year? Absolutely.
I think he does both, by the way. I think he hits over 40 home runs, and I think he strikes out about 212 times. I think he goes 41 homers, 212 strikeouts, 303 on base, 240 average, and someone's going to give him way too much money. So, and then, just to add one pitcher into this for Arizona, just let's assume, like we believe, Archie Bradley locks down a rotation spot.
Okay.
Which I think he will because he's the best pitcher on this team, regardless. Yeah. What is his just general line? You throw out an ERA, I'll throw out an ERA.
His ERA is going to be sub 3.5. I don't see the Fernandez season.
Okay, I say sub 3.
Okay. Now, what innings limit are we putting in this?
Well,
because if he pitches 70 innings,
No.
that's way
I was just
different.
gonna say, how many innings do you think he throws? That's the next one. Not an innings limit. What do you think the number is actually going to be close to?
Over 150, but not over 180.
I would say about 175.
Okay.
So, and strikeouts. What do you think?
Can we just do a K per 9?
No.
Okay.
I want full numbers. It's harder to do.
Yes, it is. Okay, so if I say he pitches 165 innings, which is what I think he will pitch, I'm going to say he's going to have over 180 strikeouts.
I agree with you. I think it'll be right under 200. I think it'll be around
Yeah.
190, 195 if, they use him a little bit more than we expected.
I have a great over-under for you.
Okay.
Over-under 3 home runs hit for Wade Miley.
I would take the under, but if you gave me that same number for Zach Greinke, I would take the over.
I don't know, man. Miley's good.
Greinke was a positive hitter. Greinke was a better hitter than their second baseman last year.
God, that's so crazy.
So, moving on to the San Diego Padres. I'm not doing this intentionally because we're running low on time, but just the Padres, while very interesting, there isn't too much to talk about. I am a huge fan of Andrew Kashner. At 6'6", 220, this kid can light it up. He is one of the most talented pitchers stuff-wise in the entire National League, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he just had a random 2.5 ERA with, 180 strikeouts and, 16 wins. He has that type of talent. They made a move in the offseason. They signed Joaquin Benoit. They traded for Seth Smith. So they did a lot of, a little bit of minor retooling. They were the team that took the 1-year plunge on Josh Johnson, who had one of the worst seasons of all time from a starting pitcher when he was allowed to throw, 80 innings. His ERA was 6.20. That's all I need to say in terms of analytics. He was just bad. They do have some other interesting, players. Will Ian Kennedy ever bounce back to the, couple of good seasons he had in Arizona a couple years ago? Tyson Ross, is he going to show and fulfill the promise he showed last year? He's another Kashner type with a ton of size.
So.
A lot of people are big on him. Kyle's going to talk about him in a second. Houston Street hasn't been traded like everyone thought for the last couple of years. Still just being a really solid, steady closer. And then when you talk about their batters, there's not much there. They're kind of similar to Seattle, where they have a really hard time because of their ballpark developing hitting talent. Will Venables, solid. Chase Headley had one monster year. Came back to earth last year. This team, not much to talk about, Kyle Smith.
There's not a lot to talk about as far as, the hitting is concerned, but I really, really like this pitching staff. I think that Ross Tyson showed a lot. He didn't have dominant strikeout numbers.
Tyson Ross, Andrew Kashner. Who's better this year? I'm taking Kashner.
I'm taking Tyson Ross.
Okay, what kind of beer?
Sure. He's got 125 innings last year, 119 strikeouts, only 44 walks. That is awesome. This guy is only 26 years old. He's got a huge frame. He's not nearly the prospect that Kashner's been throughout his career, but he's definitely been solid. He comes from a really good Oakland Athletics farm system, and that is always encouraging to me. I think he definitely benefited from the ballpark last year. But another guy I think that isn't getting a lot of credit right now is Eric Stoltz.
Mm-hmm.
He pitched over 200 innings last year.
Could be that solid veteran at 34, the Jason Marquise that they've had in the past.
Yeah, he's really high on the hits, but he only walked 40 batters in 200 innings pitched. That's awesome.
That's Cliff Lee-esque, but he doesn't obviously have the strikeout or whip numbers.
But he actually improved his strikeouts a lot this year.
He's definitely a guy that you don't mind going out there every fifth day. Obviously you don't expect him to be an ace for obvious reasons, but he gets the job done.
Yeah, no, and a lot of their prospects aren't really expected to do much this year, mostly because they don't really have a need to bring them up this year.
And a lot of them aren't ready or have a lot of injury questions.
Casey
Kelly, Max Fried has had arm issues in spring training. He was one of their big draft picks last year, high school lefty, a lot of promise. Just Austin Hedges has shown flashes but isn't ready. They have a lot of mid-level B-grade prospects that haven't really panned out for the most part yet.
Yeah, no, they have a lot of pitching. They just need to continue to build on.
They
that
need to strike
pitching.
gold on a couple hitters because with their ballpark, you could throw the Eric Stoltzes out there and be moderately successful, but they need to strike gold on some hitters. I mean,
Venable's gonna have a decent year. He really improved his hitting against left-handed hitters, and that's important. He kind of started using his athletic frame instead of bounce or relying so much on 10 different types of hand technique, which can really bog a player down. And he is a little older, so maybe he's a prime candidate to get moved to restock the shelves on that outfield.
I feel like him and Quinton both get moved this year.
Yeah. Cabrera's solid, ish. And then Chase Headley's probably another guy that's going to get moved. They just have a lot of pieces that it looks like they're kind of in the middle of rebuilding. But still, it's a somewhat exciting time for the Padres fans just because you have so many great arms coming up. And they definitely know what they're doing when it comes to, developing players. They just don't have any semblance of structure on how to keep them. See Adrian Gonzalez. Because I can't even remember who they got back for him.
For who?
You? Adrian Gonzalez? Or is he a free agent? They traded him, didn't they?
He was the main
Halfway
piece was that for that deal was Casey Kelly.
Yeah.
And they also got when the Anthony Rizzo trade, they didn't get much for him because what's his name? Yonder Alonso didn't pan out.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
Yonder Alonso was the big piece in the Matt Latos trade. And then I can't even remember what they moved Rizzo for now that I'm thinking about it because I know he didn't pan out. So, it's just very interesting the way that their hitters haven't developed. And maybe just the ballpark has a lot to do with it where it zaps the confidence, kind of like Seattle's a bit. But at the same time, you need to produce wherever you're at. I mean, you're a baseball player. You get paid a lot more than most people do. And you need to show that you're worth it and you're, developing. Or they need to be quicker on cutting ties.
Very true. Let's see.
I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add? We already made a bet on Ross and Cashner. There's just not much to talk about. I could easily see Chase Headley getting moved to the Yankees like everyone thinks. I feel like that was a flash in the pan season, to be honest, when he had that very, very good year 2 years ago. And then obviously injuries were a factor last year, but I don't see him cracking even 25 home runs if he's lucky.
By the way, we kind of whiffed on that Rizzo thing. They got Cashner in that trade. So, either way though, I mean, when you have pitching depth like that all over the place and you have a ballpark that's made for that, why are you trading a 35 potential home run with lockdown defense at first base? What's the goal there?
I will say that I love Cashner, but you are correct. If they both hit their top peak, especially when that trade was made, Cashner was thought of as a number 2.
Right.
As most players, most pitching prospects, regardless of what you hear, including from us, are not thought of as true aces. Even Twan Walker isn't thought of as technically a true ace. He's an incredible number 2. Because it's very rare for you to see the true aces. I would put Archie Bradley in that category, but, it's very rare. But even rarer than that is the potential that Rizzo showed, especially as a prospect, where he could have been a 290, 360, 500, 35 homer, incredible defensive first baseman.
Yeah, there's no reason to trade him.
Yeah, I should probably Google that and read about why they did that, because I'm actually really curious now, I honestly... But, so, we already made a bet, Kyle, and we've kind of already talked about this, and we don't want this video to run too long, so is there any player you'd like to touch on over-unders? Because I don't see too many interesting players for that type of discussion.
Well, I'll make one.
Okay.
And I'll throw it out to you. Over under 2 mound charges for Carlos Quinton this year.
I will take the under because he's in a contract year, I think.
Yeah.
But
we know this dude loves to go after pitchers.
Okay, I got one now. Over under 3 hit by pitches on accident by the Los Angeles pitching staff to Carlos Quinton, because I think it's over.
I was gonna say I think it's over. I don't think this guy's ever gonna live it down. If you're on the worst team in your division, you do not want to pick a fight with the best team, because why? they don't care if they hit you and get
Especially
you on base. They're
when
still
they're-
gonna win the game.
Especially when their near ace, former Cy Young winner, misses 4 weeks because of your stupidity.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I can't believe he wasn't suspended longer.
He
by
came
the
back
way.
from that collarbone really fast, though.
Yes, he did.
Because that's really hard to recover. Aaron Rodgers took like 7 or 8 weeks
And
to recover.
they both use their arm just as much, and I would say that a pitcher needs to use it even more precisely.
Because, more precisely.
Yeah. So that about wraps up this. We're going to start work and prep on the strenuous AL West. Could be some heated discussions in
Probably
that
one of
one.
the best divisions of baseball.
It
If not
actually
the
is.
best.
It's one of the most interesting too.
Yeah.
So. Thanks for listening, folks. That's us signing off.